Hello and welcome to another conversation on Recharge and Rise. I'm Emma Draycott, your host and founder of this summit, and I am an anxiety and burnout freedom therapist. And today I am joined with Sandie. So she's an integrative healing practitioner and author of Heal Yourself. And she's gone through her own experiences of suffering quite significant side effects from medication for 20 years, particularly battling with chronic migraines and being diagnosed with lupus. So she really committed herself to finding an alternative way of healing naturally, which we are going to dive into in our conversation today. So she really believes in addressing the whole mind, body, spirit approach and really taking the guesswork out of the work that she does with her clients. So she'll tell us a bit more about that as well. So welcome, Sandie. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
You're so welcome. So I've shared a little bit, but please tell me in your own words, your story of how you've come to do what you do now.
Yeah, so I started having health issues when I was 7, started with chronic migraines. As a teenager, I started to have insomnia, a lot of mood swings. By 19, I was actually diagnosed with bipolar depression. We tried multiple medications over the years for migraines, for the mood swings, for the insomnia. We did settle on a drug that worked a little bit. It was called, and still is, Effexor, which is a serotonin reuptake inhibitor. And that really slowed the migraines down. It didn't stop them. It prevented the huge swings I was having, but it turned me into a zombie. And very quickly, I hated that medication and I could not get off of it. It gave me, a little bit of a break from the symptoms, but I had no emotions whatsoever. And that really fueled me to realize that I never could ever prescribe this medication. And at the time, I was going to school to become a doctor. I was in biomedicine, and I realized that wasn't for me. So I finished my degree. I went on to become a massage therapist. And in my last year, I was diagnosed with a severe case of food poisoning. I lost a lot of weight. And then my health just started to spiral. It just got worse and worse. I started to have all these symptoms. And a year after that, I was diagnosed with lupus. And I already hated medication. So when they tried to prescribe me all these other medications, I said, no, thank you. I'm going to try a different route. I didn't know what that looked like. I didn't know anything about natural healing. I basically ate freezer meals and cereals and had never taken a supplement in my life, but I knew that I did not want any more medication. So it started me on my natural journey. I did a lot of fad diets. In the beginning, I was doing raw vegan, and it would make me a little bit better, but I couldn't stick to it. And then I started getting more symptoms, and I ended up having to move home and live in my parents' basement because I couldn't work anymore as a massage therapist. And I had a really dark year. This was in 2012, and it took a podcast, which is why I'm so passionate about podcasts, to really make me realize that I was looking in the wrong place. I had a science background. I needed to start to use science to heal naturally, stop these crazy diets, and start working on why. Why could other people eat food and I couldn't eat food? Like, food could not be the reason. So I knew I needed to get off that medication. I had been trying for a long time, and I really put my focus into learning how to balance the brain. And that was really my first success. It took me about a year to get off that drug, but I did it. I got my brain as balanced as it could, not having all the information that I did now. And it really started to fuel my drive. I was so determined to heal and get healthy and have a child. I started working on detox pathways and working on my gut. And I was actually able to put the lupus into remission, which we can't say cure. The pharmaceutical industry does not like us to use that word, but I have not had lupus antibodies for a very long time. So I was trying to just keep reaching an optimal level of health. I had terrible cystic acne, and in trying to clear that up, I did a lot more harm than good. I was guessing based on my symptoms, and I developed something called interstitial cystitis. And that's a very painful bladder condition that feels like you have a bladder infection, but it's really not. There's underlying causes. And it took me another year of doing trial and error before I realized I needed to get certified. I needed to run labs. I needed to stop guessing. So I did. I took a really big leap. I invested in myself. I was already $100,000 in student loans from, going to 4 years of biomedicine and then 3 years of college. So I took another big leap. I invested in a course that could get me certified. And I was able to run the labs on myself and figure out what was causing the IC. And then from there, it's all history. I started my business. Within the first probably 2-3 years, my program started to come together. It's a very systematic approach. We walk people through a very specific process that works with the body to heal. We use functional medicine labs. We customize protocols. I went on to write my book and then develop the Integrative Healing Academy, where we now have 26 grads trained in this program, over 100 students that are doing amazing things, helping themselves and their family.
Amazing. What an inspirational story to healing, but also thank you for your authenticity and honesty that it did take time and it was like trial and error, but also what I hear in that, and I think this is a really powerful message, that you did the best that you could with the information you had at that time.
Yeah.
So
I'm constantly seeking more information, right? And
yeah.
The key really now, like for me, it took me, over 5 years to heal, and I made some huge mistakes. And it doesn't have to be that way because we have these amazing labs that basically say, hey, this is what's going on. This is what your body needs. And we can customize the protocols so much better than just saying, oh, I'm depressed. Maybe it's my hormones. Maybe it's my neurotransmitters. Maybe it's this. Maybe it's that. And then trying supplements and, them not working and never knowing what's happening versus these are the labs. This is what's going on. This is what we need.
Yeah, so this is how we simplify it. So tell me about the importance of labs. What does that even mean? And what information do people get from having these?
So normally you go to your doctors, they run a basic blood work and they say, well, you're fine, right? And we have to remember that they're looking at ranges on a very unhealthy population. And you don't want to be in that population. You want to be in the healthy population, and you want to run a lot more labs than what the doctors are running. So not just blood work. I also run, to start off with, I do run a full blood panel. It's very in-depth. And then we look at genetics and we look at something called an organic acids test. And these 3 labs together give us a picture. They tell us what's going on with your brain. So how your neurotransmitters are behaving and what support your brain needs to come back into balance. It tells us what's happening with your detox pathways. It tells us what's happening with your energy centers, so your mitochondria, how your body is producing fuel. And a lot of people, they really aren't. So they're tired, they're exhausted, their brain is out of balance, their detox pathways are overwhelmed and overloaded because there's so many toxins in our environment. We're going to see nutrient deficiencies, and we're going to be able to give our body this foundation to start to repair. And it's so critical to work on getting in the basic nutrients, getting in the nutrients in the right form for your body, starting to support your brain and your detox pathways and your energy centers so that everything else can start to work. Because we're not going to get our hormones balanced, we're not going to support our adrenals if our body doesn't have the core tools to even address those.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Can you tell me a bit more about what you've just said about the brain and what you can see in the labs about how our brain functions and what that then tells you in terms of what it needs?
Yeah, the brain is definitely brain and detox pathways. They're often overlooked by so many practitioners, and people will be focusing on hormones and adrenals and the gut, and they leave out like the 2 most important things. So if our brain is not balanced, nothing else is going to be in balance. And with our brain, we have neurotransmitters, and certain neurotransmitters give us drive and motivation. We call that dopamine. And serotonin is the calming, relaxing neurotransmitter, and it makes us feel happy and good. And GABA makes us feel really relaxed. It helps us go to sleep at night. It's what people feel after they've had a glass of wine. So these are just 3 of the basic ones. But when we look at genetics and organic acids, we can see, are you prone to producing too much dopamine? Which that's me. I produce way too much dopamine and it causes me to go manic, which is why I was diagnosed with bipolar depression. So I'm prone to really high levels of dopamine and really low levels of serotonin. So I'm either manic or I crash, or manic or I crash. So by knowing this information about my brain, I can tone down my dopamine by not taking supplements that cause it to go higher. And I can bring up my serotonin to pull myself into balance. So I'm a normal functioning human being without these severe mood swings, without being up for 2 weeks at a time, cleaning my house nonstop, go, 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 and then crashing for 2 weeks into migraine land. So we see this when we look at the genetics and the organic acids test. So genetics tell us how our enzymes break down the neurotransmitters, and the organic acids tell us what's showing up. And then we can put that together and create a picture of what the brain needs for support. And we can give the brain the tools to make neurotransmitters. So a lot of people, they can't even make their neurotransmitters. So it really doesn't matter genetically what they're doing. They are not producing anything because of toxins and lack of nutrients. So we can see this on these labs and start supporting their brain so that they feel better. Because if you have no dopamine, you're not going to want to get up in the morning. You're not going to want to complete tasks. You're not going to focus. If you have too much dopamine, then you're going to be, manic crazy land. And if you have too much serotonin, again, that can cause anxiety and paranoia. And if you have too little serotonin, then you can be really depressed and not want to do anything, very apathetic. So by seeing, and these are just two of the neurotransmitters, by seeing this, we can bring the brain into balance using supplements. And it's a very simple process. We just need to know what's going on. And, we can't guess on the symptoms. So, somebody who's saying, I'm ADHD. Well, I have a lot of symptoms of ADHD. You try to get me to sit still on a task that I don't like, then I'm not going to do it. I can't focus. And, people will guess, well, your dopamine is low. No, it's not. It's not low. And if I tried to give myself more dopamine based on my symptoms, I would end up back in that manic state. So it's so important to run the labs and say, hey, this is what's going on. This is what the brain needs to come into balance.
Yeah, it's really interesting talking about the balance, and then actually how you talk about the transmitters and hormones that impact on that, but then also about symptoms, because I feel like we can take so many different illnesses, conditions, I don't want to say loads of labels because not everybody relates with a label, but there are so many different things that we know are labelled in society, but you look down at the symptom, similar, like could be, low mood, anxiety, irritability, lack of, quality sleep, and the migraines, headaches, fatigue. And those lists of symptoms can be very similar for lots of different things, can't they? So I can see why labs would be, you don't have to guess why you might be having some of these symptoms. So are there any common, when you do run labs, are there any commonalities? I know everybody is really different, but is there something that you see again and again?
Yeah, so everybody right now is lacking on nutrients. The world, especially since COVID, I've seen like people needing, before COVID, we'll use zinc as an example. 15 milligrams of zinc was plenty for 90% of the people I work with. Post-COVID, we're doing 30 to even 45 milligrams of zinc because our body's nutrient needs to handle everything that's being thrown at us with the toxins and the stress has increased exponentially. So everybody, it doesn't matter whether you feel like you're healthy or whether you're suffering from chronic illness, we need basic nutrients like magnesium and zinc and B vitamins. But the key is to know which forms do you need. right? So like something like magnesium, very simple. A lot of people are taking the wrong form. They'll take like magnesium citrate, which is not absorbed well. It mostly has a bowel action. So the majority of people do better with something called magnesium bisglycinate, which absorbs better in the body. But there are specific people who don't tolerate that. So when we run labs and we see like there's a mutation in the brain called GAD, and when people have mutations there, the glycinate can actually cause them to have very high levels of glutamic acid. So it's very excitatory and it doesn't work for them. Or people on benzodiazepines are not going to tolerate magnesium glycinate. So we want to give them, a different form like magnesium malate. Is going to be a little better for them. It's not going to be as well absorbed as the glycinate, but it's still going to be more tolerable. So they're actually able to do it. So the whole key with running the labs is to say, okay, we all need these basic nutrients. We all need B12. We all need, some type of folate in some form. For most people, like for me, I don't need a lot of folate. I don't have any genes that make me need that. But for some people, they do. And it's running the labs to say, okay, this is the form you need. So I don't tolerate a lot of something called methyl donors, and it's just a methyl group attached to the molecule. And that drives my dopamine levels way crazy. I will very quickly go manic. So, but some people, they need a lot of it. It helps them focus. It gives them more motivation, gives them more energy. So we know that we need them, but we want to run the labs to say, okay, this is the form that we need them in.
Really interesting. And with regards to, I think most people understand that we need vitamins and minerals, but I'd love to know, like, can we get enough I feel like I know the answer, but I'd love to ask you, like, can we get enough in the food that we have, if we have a particularly well-balanced diet? I was going to ask two questions at the same time, so I'll just do that one first.
One at a time is good. But not really, unless you're incredibly healthy. But I reached like a very high level of health, and I went off my supplements for a period of time, and I quickly started to go downhill again. This was post-COVID. So, maybe pre-COVID, if you're growing your own food or, buying from local farmers, they're not using pesticides and they're not using GMO and, that sort of thing. And you're making everything from scratch and you're eating like a high amount of meats and organ meats and that sort of thing. Maybe, yes, you could get it all from food. But normally the average person isn't going to get it from food. Your diet would have to be really, really clean. And not only your diet, but your toxin exposure would have to be really low. So that's the problem, right? Is, there's toxins in the air, there's toxins in the water, there's toxins in the food, there's 5G, there's all of these things that are hitting us. There's the stress that we're under, like in particularly with women. We are working, we're taking care of kids, we're doing all of these things. And we're really draining our body's resources. So our body is like this bank account, and most of us are just taking withdrawals. We are like constantly withdrawing every day, and we quickly go into debt. And in order to heal, we need to slow down those withdrawals. So cut out the toxins, cut out the stress, and we need to start making deposits. And sadly, because our food isn't what it was 100 years ago, because of modern farming, we're not going to make enough of a deposit to get out of debt. We might make a little bit of a headway, but we need to not only get out of debt, we need to get a really big reserve in our bank account, because we don't know when the next stress is going to happen, when the next super virus is going to hit us, when the next emotional trauma is going to happen. We could have a loss of a loved one. We don't know. And because of the constant daily stress that we're under, you couple that with an acute stressor, and the body just quickly can't handle it.
Yeah, so I get that. So when you talk about toxins, what do you specifically mean by that term?
So toxins can be, if we're thinking about food, just go and read a label. Go to the store, read a label. There's going to be preservatives, artificial colors, artificial flavors. Sometimes I don't even know what they're even adding. It's not any of those. It's just like they're putting stuff in the food for, whatever reason. A lot of it's not even real. It's not real food anymore. So we're being bombarded with this in the food that we're eating. But if you look at our water, chlorine, fluoride, you can get your water tested and see all the different chemicals. There's a lot of pesticide drain off into our water sources that are considered safe, but really should not be going into our body. Most of us have a lot of high level of microplastics in our body because everything that we're using is plastics. The air we breathe is full of pollution. Some people are living in mold. We have to look at all of these things that are constantly taking a load. If we look at in our environment, we've got like cleaning products, facial care products, soap, conditioners, lotions, anything you put on your body. People with the perfume. Perfume is a huge one. It's like the new secondhand smoke, and then we don't really deal as much with secondhand smoke because there's a lot more awareness on that in most of the world. But all of these things are going to be taking a toll on our bodies.
Really interesting. So in terms of some of these toxins, what is the physical impact on our body, if you can simplify it?
Right? So we have 3 phases of detoxification. And phase 1 runs by something called CYP enzymes. And it basically is like adding water or removing water, adding hydrogen, those sort of things. And it's breaking it down for immediate transport out of the body, or it goes into phase 2, which has 7 subphases. And the more these toxins are putting stress on these pathways, the less nutrients are going in to make these pathways work, then they stop working and the toxins build up in the body. And this is really the biggest source of illness, is the fact that our body can no longer handle these toxins. And in phase 3, that is how our body gets rid of the toxins, so how the toxins leave the body, and oftentimes that gets really blocked. So kidney function goes down, or we're seeing lack of bile flow, and that's where we start to see a lot of skin issues, because the body is not getting rid of the toxins through the main pathways. And so when these pathways stop functioning, in particular, we have something called methylation, and most people have heard of MTHFR. There's a big focus on it, but that's a very small piece of this beautiful methylation cycle. And when that cycle, and it's a circle, is broken and it's not you're not methylating properly, then your body can't inactivate cancer cells, it can't inactivate viruses. A lot of these toxins are not going to be detoxified, and that's where it starts to wreak havoc on the body. And it can take a lot of work to actually repair those pathways. And so it increases our cancer risks, it increases our risk of heart disease and stroke, because the body just can't handle the toxins. And if we went back 200 years ago, a lot of these things didn't exist. Our bodies were not designed to handle this degree of chemicals. In the past, like, you can do a Google search, but how many new toxins have been created in the past 100 years? And the number is just mind-blowing. So our bodies weren't meant to handle this. And then our food on top of it is depleted. So it's our job to get the labs and start supporting the body so that it can handle the level of toxins in our environment, and then do the work to start minimizing the toxins in your environment, clean things up.
Yeah, so it's clear that it can cause, having so many toxins can cause illness. Is there any particular early indications of typical illnesses? So could it be literally colds, flu, or actually are there other ones that are quite common, or potentially because it affects our whole body, it could be all sorts of different things?
Yeah, it definitely could be, migraines, fatigue, brain fog, achiness. But some people have silent bodies, their body is not communicating, or they're ignoring their bodies, one or the two. But there's a lot of people that all of a sudden there's cancer there, and they don't feel there was any warning signs. They were healthy. And then my body, it's since a young age has been saying, no, we don't like that. We don't like that. We don't like that. So I was always very sensitive to perfumes and chemicals. And it's just my body saying, whoa, that's poison. Let's leave.
Yeah.
right? It's almost like a superpower when our body gives us these early warning signs. So people are always, they're frustrated that they're tired or they're having migraines or, all these symptoms are happening. But really it's a blessing because the body is saying, we can't handle this anymore. You need to figure this out. You need to support me, and you actually have a chance to start doing the work, because a lot of the people who have no symptoms and they get cancer or have a stroke or have a heart attack, by the time they get there and start feeling something, there are already so much damage being done, and it's much harder to recover from.
Yeah, so I'm definitely relating with my own experience of healing. Like I do feel like your body was like giving you a information and an opportunity to go,
Yeah.
hey. And I know that for anybody that's struggled with their own health as well, it's interesting how more sensitive your body can be. So you were saying from a young age your body was quite sensitive. When I went through a health experience, actually I started to notice the things that were impacting my body, which I now believe always impacted my body, but when I was unwell it was so much more sensitive to it. So like you were saying, and some examples for me was smells, perfumes, like the oven being on,
Yeah.
cleaning products. There were just certain lights. There's just certain things that like my body was like, this is
Too much.
yeah, too much. I mean, I couldn't have the oven on physically for quite a while because I was like, it
Yeah.
literally just smells like burning tires to me right now, which didn't to
Yeah.
anybody else, but my system was clearly. So there was an opportunity there to be like, what can we strip back, because my body doesn't like this.
No, exactly. And so many people just want to turn it off. And it's
Yeah,
like, no, you don't want to turn it off. Your body is sending you a very distinct message that that is toxic and it
yeah,
cannot not handle these toxins right now. So you need to clean it up.
yeah. What's for an average person, what's the first thing that we might be able to do to start cleaning things up? So in terms of toxins, what's some easy shifts and changes?
Yeah, so easiest ones, well, I wouldn't say easy because they tend to be more expensive. So food, start sourcing meat from farms that are practicing proper husbandry. They're feeding the animals a species appropriate diet. So, cows should be eating grass and they shouldn't be eating like corn and being packed full of hormones to make them bigger and all that sort of thing. So grass-fed meat, farm fresh eggs, raw dairy right from the farm. There's tons of sources in the UK. Buy less from the grocery store and more from your farm or local growers. When it comes to produce, I know in the UK, you guys don't have the biggest growing season, so it's a little bit more tough. But if you can really focus on cleaning up the meat and the milk and the eggs, that's going to be, a huge impact. And then get a water filter. Like, we don't have anything extreme because our water here is not that terrible. We just run a zero filter and filter our water that way. But a lot of people need to test their water because there could be some like gross heavy metals in there. There could be some radioactive chemicals in there that are safe limits when they really shouldn't be in there. And then you might need a reverse osmosis filter. So it's really important to get your water tested and get an appropriate filter. So clean up your water, start to clean up your meat and your dairy and your eggs. Buy organic when you can, but even organic, it has its own organic allowed pesticides, and so when you can, grow your own food or try to get it from somebody locally growing their own produce. You guys don't really have a lot that you can grow there. So, but you can grow some things. I live in Florida and we have a long growing season, but we have a lot of bugs, but there's ways to permaculture around that and make things work. So, I encourage you to look into that or look into somebody who's already doing that. And then really start working on your chemicals. So cleaning products, replace all cleaning products with like water, vinegar, and a clean dish soap and some essential oils that you like. So peppermint, tea tree, and lemon, and make that easy switch because you can go crazy with it, but I would recommend going crazy in very small amounts over a period of time, so it becomes more of a lifestyle, something that you're used to. But I would recommend you start focusing with what's going into your body, and just take it slow. Like, say, I'm going to focus on meat for the next month, and just sourcing out good quality meat and incorporating that into our lifestyle and our diet. And then from there, you can go on to, I'm going to look at what I put on my skin. So, shampoo, conditioners, facial washes, and just start doing a little bit of research, and, spend a month tackling that. And then, go to your laundry products, and one thing at a time. Otherwise, it just gets really overwhelming and it's quite expensive. So, take your time.
Yeah, that's really good advice. Like, one bit at a time. It's definitely an approach that I've taken with other things, but actually you've inspired me for other parts that I hadn't really considered. And although it makes sense now that you've said that, I was like, I could get my water tested. That hadn't really occurred to me.
Right?
So
Yep.
that is helpful information that even though it makes sense, I didn't think about that before this conversation.
And sadly, because the UK is so damp, there's so much rain, there's a lot of mold in most people's homes.
Yeah.
So, people can go really crazy with the mold, and we can't go mold zero. And in the UK, it's pretty hard to find homes that have no mold. So you can be running like HEPA 13 filters especially in your bedrooms when you're sleeping at night. So get a really good quality air filter so that you're cleaning it up. It's kind of like in Florida. We're never going to go mold zero. It's humid, like you can't imagine, for 6 months of the year. We're 40 degrees for 4 months of the year straight, sometimes higher than that. So but we can run a mold filter, right? We can try to live in as clean of an environment as possible.
Yeah, with regard to air purification, I mean, I know that plants can be quite helpful for that.
Good. Yep. But they tackle the mold, though.
So no, I was thinking, I'm sure they don't tackle mold, though.
No. HEPA 13 filters. I just ordered a new filter for our room because we did find mold in our HVAC. We're not remediating until the humidity drops. It's pointless. So I bought a HEPA 14 filter, and we'll just run that in the bedrooms. But besides that, you go outside, there's more mold outside. After it rains, everything is just black. It's like our concrete, our house, everything, just this lovely mold blossoms. So we can't really get away from it, but we can work to clean it up. And as soon as the humidity goes down, we will remediate.
That's really helpful. And some ideas about like cleaning products and stuff like that. Are there any particular brands that you work with, or any particular places that you'd recommend? Because I really appreciate that and I know you said do research, but it does feel like a bit of a minefield when you're trying to make changes, and you still want a product that is going to do what your old chemical full product did.
They don't really, though. So you just got to let that go. Like, my dish soap is never going to be like Dawn dish soap. It's not going to cut the grease. You're going to use a little bit more. But whenever you read a label, if there's like 30 things that you can't pronounce, you're in the wrong place, right? So because I work with clients in like 27 countries, every country, when it comes to like cleaning products and that, they're going to have different brands available. So it's really just looking, if you can't pronounce a lot of things, go somewhere else, pick something that has minimal ingredients. But we have to let go of the expectation that the natural laundry detergent's not going to smell and stay fresh as long as the chemical one. Our natural soaps are not going to clean as well as like the grease fighting chemicals, but it might take you a little bit longer, but you still will go that way. For me, I use like a very basic dish soap and vinegar, and that's what I clean with, and it works good. You add some essential oils and it doesn't smell terrible. Like, it doesn't make everything smell like vinegar chips, but you just have to do what we can. It's not going to work as perfect. Now, you don't have to get rid of everything. Like, I still use the same shampoo and conditioner that I used when I was 11 because I'm used to the scent, and I have like terrible dreadlocks. As soon as I don't shower for 24 hours, my hair starts to like clump. together, and I have to sit here and pick out with like globs of conditioner, try to loosen it so that I can get the dreadlocks out. It's the most annoying thing on the planet. And there's no way I'm ever going to change my conditioner because it's the only one that I can actually get the knots out.
But we get to make choices, don't we? Because
exactly.
we, you know, when we make informed choices about things. So, you know, skincare is one of those. You know, a lot of people, you know, might know that they've got certain things in them, but equally they want, I don't know, that, you know, that the dark circles underneath their eyes to go. So,
right. So
we all make choices.
Yeah, choose some and then clean up the rest, right? Like, you're not going to live in a bubble. Nobody can. We can't be perfect with everything all the time. Like, we eat really clean 90% of the time, and then we go out for dinner and eat whatever we want once a week. And then we travel back to Canada, where we're from, and we eat whatever we want when we're in Canada. And then we get home and we clean things back up. So the goal is to reduce the withdrawals. Like, we're not going to stop them. It's impossible. But if we start like really maximizing those deposits and building up our reserve, then our body can handle it.
Yeah, thank you for that. The other thing I'd love to talk about is supplements, because they are definitely feel like a minefield. And for your clients, is this something that you almost like prescribe, or do you make recommendations?
So I'm not huge on brands. I like to choose brands that aren't owned by the pharmaceutical industry. So, you know, as long as they're not owned by the pharmaceutical company, I'm okay with it. I don't choose the most expensive brands. So you're not going to see me like picking the most expensive options. I also don't sell any supplements. I have, you know, I'll give somebody a link, and as long as they get the same form, like the form is important. So if I tell you to get a methylfolate, don't go and get, you know, folic acid, for instance. So as long as they get the same form and they're doing the same dose, then it really doesn't matter too much with the brand. You just want to look for ones that are not run by the pharmaceutical industries. For people who are really sensitive, I'll use like a powder supplement, and that way there's no fillers, because, you know, the amount of filler in a capsule is like very small. But if somebody's really sensitive, then I'll work to not have that in there. But most people can tolerate it. And most supplements do have some fillers. It's just making their capsule full versus it being like, I don't know why they just don't give a smaller capsule, right? Like it doesn't make any sense, but that's all it is. And for the most part, you know, it's such a small amount that it's not going to hurt you. But if you're very, very sensitive, then go with a powdered form. In the US, I use a brand called Bulk Supplements because it's just plain powder, but you can find different powdered supplements all over the place. And UK has, you know, all, you know, the same good supplements that is available in the US.
Yeah, absolutely. That's interesting to know about the and with the tablets. I guess they don't want like a air bubble in them, or like a. There'll be a reason, and it might not just be about perfection.
Right? I think it's like the mental aspect that if you saw the capsule not as full, but yet their bottles are not full. So I don't understand it. I did look into a period of time of designing my own supplements, but the cost to my clients is just too much to cover, you know, to really justify it, because most people aren't going to want to go that option because it's so much more expensive.
Yeah, because of, I understand that. So actually you will use the blood, like the lab test, to inform what you recommend. So therefore, because I guess some of my questions with supplements would be, you know, do we need them? I mean, I've heard doctors say things like, you know, they don't, you know, might not even be absorbed and all of those different things. But I suppose the difference is from what you do is you've done the test to know what is actually needed, so it's bespoke rather than taking a multivit and guessing what we need.
Multivitamins are not absorbed at all. They're like, some of the things will get pulled out, but it's mostly just expensive poop and pee. It's too many things all at one time. You need to break up your minerals. You need to not take calcium and copper and iron at the same time. Like those minerals should not be taken with any of the other minerals. And you look at a multi, you've got all of the minerals in there. You've got all of the B vitamins. You've got all of these fat soluble vitamins, and it's just too much. Like you're just going to pee it out. So it is important to break up your nutrients, and it's important to have the right form, because if you're not giving the body the right form, it's not going to be used. So even if it is absorbed, it's not going to be used properly, or it's going to cause more harm. So definitely needed. But yes, I don't do multivitamins. I will use a B complex or a mineral complex, but the mineral complex is not going to have the calcium, the iron, or the copper in it. Those always need to be taken separately from the other minerals. And if I'm using a B complex, it really is going to depend on a person's genetics, whether they need the B complex, whether they tolerate an active B complex, or whether they need a B complex without like folate or without B12. And then we separate those and we add them in the right form for their genetics. So it's really, really important to get the right form, because they are absorbed. I've had so many people say, I'm not absorbing my supplements, and I run the labs. I'm like, oh, there they are. There they are. They're being absorbed. They're definitely being absorbed.
You've got the evidence. I guess that's the difference, isn't it? And with the clients that you do work with, when they have got this prescription or advice around the supplements are helpful, what do you tend to see for your clients that once they have the right supplements?
Add them in slowly. Don't start taking all of them at one time. So I always design my protocols. I have like a summary of their lab findings, and then my protocols are all in order. And I have this really big blurb at the very top, and it says, start one supplement at a time. Start at a low dose and work your way up to a dose, that feels good. If ever you run into any side effects from taking this supplement, go back to the dose before that didn't cause any side effects, because healing should not be painful. But you couldn't imagine, no matter how many times I like highlight it and I bold it, that people just don't read it. And then, 3 days later, they're like, Sandie, I started all the supplements. I feel like crap. I'm like, well, that's not shocking. Did you read the top of the page? No. Or I'll have some people who are like, yeah, but I chose to ignore that. Start slowly. It's not a race. Your body needs, like when I do up a foundation protocol, your body needs like 1 to 2 months to get it on board. And then it needs like another 30 days to even start to use it. So it's not like I'm going to take this supplement and tomorrow I am better. It's not a drug. It's not a medication. It doesn't work that way. You're giving your body tools, and now your body has to fix all the backlog, and it has to start to repair things. And that takes time. And it's like this part of the equation that people don't want to accept is that time is a huge factor, and your body needs it to do anything, right? If you've been sick for 30, 40 years, you're not going to be better in 3 months. It might take 2 to 3 years to get better. If you've only been sick for a year or two, you might get a lot better in 2 to 3 months, right? So that time factor is huge, and supplements are not medications. They don't just turn off a symptom. Our goal is not even to turn off the symptom. Our goal is to give the body the tools to heal, and then give it time to heal.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for your insights into that part of healing, to really actually be able to support our body in what is literally in it and what is able to create within ourselves to support its own pathways of healing. So thank you so much for sharing your insight. So as we come to the end of our chat today, I'd love to ask you, is there any piece of advice that you would like to share that is really powerful for women to know in this type of healing journey?
Right. So when you go to the doctor and the doctor says it's all in your head or it's all your hormones, don't listen. Go get some labs. Your brain might need to be balanced and your hormones might need to be balanced, yes. But there is so much more to it. And we have to remember that if we're in chronic stress, if we're always in fight or flight, if our body is bombarded with toxins, it's not thinking about reproduction. Of course, your hormones are going to be out of balance, But fixing your hormones is not going to bring everything else into balance. So you need to do the foundation work, get the stress down, and start giving your body tools so that it can even work on your hormones. And yes, we all need brain balancing. The majority of people all need brain balancing. We all need some tools to help there. It doesn't mean you need to go on an antidepressant. There's ways to balance your brain naturally, start working on your body as a whole, and not get stuck on just one thing, especially for women, because we're always told that it's your hormones. It's your hormones. And it's like, oh, no, it's not. You're stressed. You're likely taking on way too much more than what you should be handling, trying to help everybody and do all the work. We all feel that, and still work at the same time and take care of the household. So we need to, learn to set boundaries, reduce our stress, and then start balancing the entire body. And labs are going to be the way. It's going to tell you what's going on.
Yeah, so not only are labs like the key, but I imagine that they can be quite validating when as well other tests haven't really shown certain things, or you have been told, and many clients have got experience of things and then they're told it's all in their head, and it's not.
It's not.
It's not, and it's a really invalidating experience when you've got symptoms that can't really be explained. And then you are almost, and I've definitely been led to feel this myself, where you feel like, is this actually? Like, to the point where you question your own sanity, which is awful. The fact that it makes you feel like that, you can't even trust your own experience because so thank you so much for sharing that. And I know that you've got a gift for the listeners, so would you like to share what that is?
Yeah, so if you're interested in learning more about the functional medicine labs, I do have a full functional medicine lab workshop. You can sign up for it. I know Emma has the link, and it's going to go over all the labs that I run in my program. It shows you exactly what's in each one. It's really cool. If you're like a science geek like me, or just like, yes, I want to understand what's going on with my body, then you'll really enjoy it.
Yeah, amazing. So that link will be below, so you can check that out. And then just want to remind people that I also have a free gift. So that is to join me on a 3-day live experience, which is where I will be sharing my freedom formula to support you to get freedom from anxiety and burnout. So I'm really blessed by these conversations and the conversations that we're having in this experience, because we have so many different facets of different things that are contributing to actually a lot of very similar symptoms, and there are different ways that we can support ourselves. And what I'm feeling right now is taking those different approaches are going to really, really serve our own physical health. And I'm just really blessed as well, because I know that, and I know you shared on your healing journey, you didn't know what you know now. I didn't know what I know now, and there's still more. But this isn't always like common knowledge or trusted knowledge for people. So I feel really, really blessed that we're being able to bring these conversations to women who want to feel better. And there's so many different ways that they can now consider actually a pathway of how do I actually do that. So thank you for contributing to the conversation, Sandie. I really appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me.
Okay, and then for the guests, thank you very much for being here, for putting yourself first, and to share your energy with us as well. And I will look forward to seeing you on another conversation in the experience. So bye for now.